I never feel ready for these videos ever, but we're here, we're doing it. There's no such thing as a perfect presentation. This presentation video is going to be a nightmare pulling up key cards, but I think I'm pretty organized, so let's get into it. All right, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Heather, and on this channel, I break down astrology, cognitive functions, nervous system regulation, archetypal psychology, and what I call the moral load framework, a system for understanding how different archetypes process pressure, responsibility, identity, emotion, and truth. And yes, you're going to be seeing my breath. It's probably like 15 degrees outside right now. I've got my space heater going on, my electric blanket. We're out here in the industrial farm shed. We're doing it regardless if we're ready, regardless of the weather. We are out here moving on along. So, this is not surface level astrology. This is not just traits or compatibility. What we do here is map out your higher potential. What we do here is map the zodiac as psychological architecture. We look at how different signs regulate through the nervous system, how distortion forms developmentally, what each archetype carries inside human systems, and why so many survival patterns get mistaken for personality. In this series, I've been breaking the archetypes down by tiers, not based on worth, intelligence, or morality necessarily, but based on how pressure moves. Some archetypes store it, some absorb it, some stabilize it, and some move it outward through action, expression, story, belief, or systems. Right now, we're in tier 4, the motion archetypes. And after beginning that fire sequence with Aries, this video is a bridge into Leo. So I've already done one Leo video. And normally I do these bridge videos in between two personality types when I am completed with the personality types. But I felt this video is extremely necessary. So all right, so where was I? And after beginning the fire sequence with Aries, this video is bridging Leo before we get into the inner and outer. So this is an in-between video before I do the full Leo or ESFP, inner and outer masculine and feminine breakdown, because there are a few structural distinctions that need to be clear first. So yes, we were talking about Aries and Leo again, but we are also talking about the differences. So I'm going to bring up Aries and Leo. And who else? Scorpio, Taurus. Scorpio. Taurus is behind Aries. I'm going to regret moving that. All right, so we've got a lot going on. So just briefly, we are talking about the difference between Mars and the Sun for Leo. I'm going to regret this so much because I'm going to have to do this later. All right. So, Aries, first we're going to compare Aries and Leo. So, Mars and Sun. So, we have Mars ruling Aries and the Sun ruling Leo. The difference between extroverted feeling child and introverted feeling parent. So, I want to compare FE and FI because they're extremely different cognitive functions psychologically. The difference between identity, action, truth, and emotional depth, and the way these archetypes relate to Libra, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus inside the larger fixed sign and polarity matrix. So, this video is really about placing Leo correctly inside the architecture before zooming into the quadrant breakdown. Because Leo does not make sense in isolation. Leo only fully makes sense when you understand why Aries is not identity in the way you think and the way that people think, why Leo is not just performance or attention seeking, why Scorpio and Leo can share FI but express it in opposite ways, why Aquarius, so let me bring up Aquarius briefly. I wasn't going to do this, but here I am. Why Aquarius is the correct force for both Leo and Scorpio, and why the fixed signs each hold a different layer of reality. So, this is going to be a great video. All right, so still doing the introduction. All right. So what we're covering in this video, we're going to start with the difference between Aries and Leo because that confusion has to be cleaned up first. So Aries and Leo is what we are going to be discussing first. Both are fire, both can look bold, both can look expressive, charismatic, dramatic, or leadership oriented. So my prior video does go pretty in deep comparing the two, but I want to go even deeper. I'm an Aries rising. I always attract Leo rising or Leo midheaven. I am a Capricorn midheaven. But it's extremely fascinating how Aries and Leo compare to each other. They're both leaders in their own right. They're both ambitious and expressive and action oriented in their own right. So I just want to break that down a little bit more because I've experienced these energies colliding in my personal life. And so, but Aries and Leo are not the same kind of fire. Aries is governed by Mars, so its nervous system stabilizes through action, propulsion, friction, and impact with reality. They want to make a huge impact. Leo is governed by the sun, so its nervous system stabilizes through identity, coherence, expression, visibility, and recognition. So Aries asks, what must I do right now? Leo asks, who am I and is this being seen? So Aries saying is I am, and Leo is I will. So the I am thing can be confusing astrologically. That's why I combine so many systems together. I just want to feather it out more. So that difference matters because Aries performs action while Leo performs identity. From there, we're going to get into the FE versus FI distinction because that is one of the real structural keys underneath this entire comparison. Aries carries FE child, which means it discovers itself through interaction, feedback, social experimentation, and reactive engagement with the external field. Leo carries FI parent, which means it begins from an internal identity center and then expresses that center outwards. So even though Aries can look more spontaneous and Leo can look more expressive, the deeper split is this. Aries checks the environment first. Leo checks themselves first. This leads us into the polarity layer. So we're going to also compare Libra and Aries. So Libra and Aries. This axis where Aries represents reactive motion and Libra represents relational calibration. And we'll also look at Leo and Aquarius. I'm driving myself nutty. Leo and Aquarius, where Leo represents identity anchoring and Aquarius represents impersonal truth, systems, and collective evolution. That matters because Leo distortion happens when identity becomes self-referential and loses objectivity. Aquarius is the force that asks, what is true regardless of identity? And then further after that, we are going to be talking about Scorpio. So Scorpio, we're going to widen the frame further and bring in Scorpio because Scorpio and Leo both carry FI parent, but they express it through entirely different energies. Leo expresses identity outward through the sun and SE presence. Scorpio protects identity inward through plutonic depth, emotional intensity, and transformational truth. Scorpio. Okay, so we're also going to compare Leo as expressive identity, Scorpio as protective identity, Leo as visibility, and Scorpio as integrity. And once that's clear, it naturally opens into the fixed signs. So, the fixed signs, we have Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. They all have a fixed modality. Trying to stay in screen here. Okay, so naturally, it opens into fixed signed matrix Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius because each fixed sign holds something different. Taurus holds matter and stability. Leo holds identity and selfhood. Scorpio holds emotion and power. Aquarius holds truth and systems. So that's a larger skeleton underneath this video. So why this video matters before we get into the Leo quadrants. I hope this doesn't glitch too bad. All right, so the reason I'm doing all of that before I get into the Leo's inner and outer masculine and feminine. So people flatten Leo into ego, performance, or attention. They flatten Aries into confidence. They flatten Scorpio into intensity. They flatten Aquarius into detachment. But those labels miss the actual architecture. This video is here to clarify the architecture first. It explains why Aries can look more raw but less anchored, why Leo can look more curated but still have a real internal identity core, why Scorpio and Leo can both be FI driven but move in opposite directions, why Aquarius challenges both identity and emotional fusion, and why the fixed signs become distorted when what they hold becomes more important than reality itself. So this is a structural bridge video. It sits between the Aries material and the full Leo material, but it also links out into the broader matrix of fire development, fixed signed holding fields, polarity correction, and the relationship between identity, truth, emotion, and reality. So in this video, we're not just asking whether Aries and Leo are different. We're asking, what does Mars do that the sun does not? So let me bring these up briefly before I get back into everything. So we're asking, what does Mars do that the sun does not? What does FE child do that FI parent does not? What happens when identity is expressed versus when it is protected? What happens when identity is challenged by truth? And how do Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius each distort when they try to hold reality too tightly? Once those distinctions are clear, the Leo quadrant architecture makes a lot more sense. Because before we can say that Leo is internally and externally, what it is internally and externally, we first have to understand where Leo sits in relation to Aries, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, and Libra. So that is what this video is for. So I'm going to start with Aries versus Leo, performance versus recognition. What am I at? 13-minute introduction. All right. I gotta find a better song. I think I need some, I don't know. Oh, there we go. All right. You'd be surprised at what I'm listening to right now. All right. So Aries versus Leo. Aries ESTP versus Leo ESFP. Performance versus recognition. So I am an Aries rising. I have attracted Leo risings or midheavens. And so I am extremely curious with feathering this out more. So Aries versus Leo, performance versus recognition. They both have SE hero and NI inferior. Ruled by Mars, ruled by Sun. We have NI inferior, or Saturn, excuse me. Aries has Saturn in fall. And Leo has Uranus and Mercury in fall. So another interesting thing that I added to the end of this video, all of the fixed signs have Uranus in different placements of their archetype. All the fixed modality signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, have Uranus in their archetype. Hysterical. So that'll be a fun closing. All right, so Mars versus Sun, action versus identity stabilization. The core difference between Aries and Leo begins at the level of the nervous system, and more specifically at the level of planetary regulation. So Aries is governed by Mars, the archetype of propulsion, survival instinct, and forward motion. Mars does not reflect, Mars does not wait, Mars moves. Because of this, the Aries nervous system stabilizes through action, impact, and immediate engagement with reality. Pressure enters the system and the body responds by discharging it outward through movement. The loop is fast, physical, and decisive. Leo, by contrast, is governed by the sun, the archetype of identity, coherence, and radiance. The sun does not collide with the environment the way Mars does. It radiates into it. Because of this, the Leo nervous system stabilizes through expression, visibility, and recognition. Pressure does not need to be discharged through action alone. It is processed through identity being seen and acknowledged. This creates two entirely different internal questions. Aries asks, "What must I do right now?" Leo asks, "Who am I and is this being seen?" Because of this, Aries does not naturally build identity through performance. Aries performs actions, Leo performs identity. Mars proves existence through movement. The sun proves identity through radiance. What Aries wants: Mars regulation loop. Aries does not fundamentally seek recognition. So that was like my big question. Recognition can feel good, but it is not regulating force. So I've noticed that this is total side tangent. When people are criticizing you, normally they're projecting what they themselves are focused on. So I'm just it's just a side note, but don't forget that. Aries does not fundamentally seek recognition. Recognition can feel good, but it is not the regulating force. What Aries wants is friction, or debating, or intellectual stimulation, or competition, physical, pushing your body and mind as hard as you can. Mars requires resistance in order to activate. Without something to push against, the Aries nervous system begins to feel stagnant or restless. What stabilizes Aries is not applause, it is impact. Their internal loop looks like challenge, action, result, reset. This loop is biological. It is tied to adrenaline, dopamine, and the fight response system. When Aries encounters resistance, the system activates. When they act, the pressure releases. Once the result is achieved, the nervous system resets quickly. What Aries is actually seeking is resistance to overcome, momentum to maintain, competition to engage, obstacles to test against, proof of capability through direct experience. If Aries climbs a mountain alone, the act itself stabilizes them. The mountain was the resistance, the climb was the regulation. Leo climbing that same mountain experiences something different. Without the sun's reflection, without visibility, the act can feel incomplete. Not because Leo is shallow necessarily, but because their system stabilizes through identity being witnessed, not just action being completed. So, when they climb the mountain, they want to be seen for doing so. Aries, they climb the mountain to just climb the mountain. Lion versus the ramrod. All right. So my other question was, do Aries erase themselves through performance? Good question. So Aries distortion, losing reflection, Mars overdrive. Aries does not collapse into persona the way Leo does. Their distortion is not identity based, it is momentum based. When Mars becomes overactive without integration from Saturn, reflection, time, consequence, the system can enter a loop of action, 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 action without pause. Aries begins to over-identify with movement itself. Instead of asking, "Who am I becoming?" the system remains locked into what is next. This can lead into impulsivity, constant confrontation, lack of long-term reflection, difficulty integrating experience. Aries does not erase identity through performance, they bypass identity through motion. Where Leo can become overly curated, Aries becomes overly instinctive. Mars without reflection becomes reaction. Aries doesn't usually create a persona. They can actually become too raw and unfiltered, which is the opposite problem. Where Leo can become overly curated, Aries can become overly instinctive. So the sun and recognition loop for Leo. Leo's vulnerability is much more subtle and much more psychological because the sun governs identity and because Leo stabilizes that identity through expression and recognition. The psyche eventually begins to track what generates the strongest feedback from the environment. The question shifts from who am I to what version of me is most loved, seen, or admired. At first, nothing is wrong, expression is genuine, identity is real. But over time, the system begins to amplify traits that generate recognition, suppress traits that do not, shape expression based on audience response. This is the formation of persona. I'm going to actually move my phone because my computer has been glitching more lately, and I do not have the internet besides hotspot, so hopefully that actually helps. Sorry about my couple of videos that had glitchy screens. I have a 2014 or 13 laptop. I have a TV I'm using that I've had for probably over a decade, so could be my older equipment. Hard telling. All right, so this is the formation of the persona. The persona is not fake in the beginning, it is refined identity. But if left unchecked, it becomes performed identity by Leo. Eventually, the center shifts identity, expression, recognition, and performance. The sun no longer radiating from within, it is now orbiting the audience. That is the Leo distortion. So, which archetype is naturally more authentic first? In early development, Aries is usually more naturally authentic. Not because Aries is more evolved, but because Aries has less psychological filtering. Aries acts before self monitoring develops. Mars acts before identity is constructed. There's no time for self monitoring. Expression is immediate, raw, and instinctive. Leo expresses after identity awareness develops. So Aries authentically looks like impulsive, raw, unfiltered, and instinctive. Leo authenticity looks like expression, being charismatic, identity based, and curated. So the real distinction is Aries is raw without structure, and Leo is structured but at risk of performance. Aries can accidentally be authentic. Leo must choose authenticity over validation. All right, so this is another really interesting thing that I've been looking into. So I do follow C.S. Joseph. I actually haven't watched his information or videos on YouTube for about a year now or so. I'm just kind of in a place in my own work where I'm doing my own work. I no longer am watching other people to learn. I've kind of expanded into my own thing here. And so C.S. Joseph would say that ESFPs, their virtue is gratification, and their vice is instant gratification. So it's close, but I would say that Leo's virtue or the ESFP, I combine both systems. Leo's virtue is dignified expression, and Leo's vice is recognition addiction. So that difference is subtle. Leo's virtue is not simply confidence, it is dignified, self sourced identity expression. When integrated, the sun stabilizes internally. Expression flows outward naturally. Recognition becomes appreciation, not necessity. So, Leo virtue, expression flows from authentic identity. Recognition is appreciated but not required. The person shines because they are aligned with themselves. This produces inspiration, generosity, confidence, and creative leadership. Leo becomes the sun of the environment, warming others. Leo vice, expression becomes a strategy for recognition. It just reminds me of a PR team politically. It's hilarious. Man, I'm still glitching. I'm slow. All right, so Leo vice, expression becomes a strategy for recognition. Recognition becomes emotional regulation. The loop becomes expression, applause, stability, more expression. At this stage, identity becomes dependent on attention. This is what creates performative identity, attention seeking, dramatic emotional cycles, and persona maintenance. But it is not usually hedonistic, instant gratification. It's actually identity stabilization through recognition. So, Aries vice versus Leo vice. So it helps to compare the distortions directly. Aries vice is impulsive action, constant confrontation, impatience, identity defined only by capability. They burn energy without reflection. Leo vice is identity performance, recognition dependency, persona maintenance, and emotional dramatization. They burn energy maintaining identity visibility. So the integrated forms. When healthy, the two archetypes become extremely powerful together. Integrated Aries is courageous, decisive, direct, and action oriented. They initiate. Integrated Leo is inspiring, expressive, generous, and identity stable. They lead emotionally. The relationship between them is almost like a spark and a sun. Aries starts the fire, Leo becomes the flame people gather around. All right, so now we're going to be getting into Aries, FE child, external emotional play and feedback, and Leo, FI parent, internal identity and value anchoring. So Mars burns versus the sun burn. Mars burn versus sun burn. So the core difference, Aries checks the environment, Leo checks themselves. Even though Aries looks more raw and Leo looks more expressive, the internal mechanism is actually reversed. So Aries, FE child. So actually, I want to go over FE versus FI. So I want to start with FI. So I am going to actually pull that up and hopefully I can figure out where to put it on the screen. Okay, so hopefully you can read this well enough. I might have to scoot over a little bit. Okay. All right, so hopefully you can see that well enough. I'm just like all over the place here. I might blow it up just a little bit more. This is important. All right, so this is very uncomfortable, but we're doing it. Okay. All right, so I'm in the wrong spot here. We're talking about FE and FI. So the parent, let's see. Scorpio. Hold on just one second. I think Scorpio and Leo both have FI parent. Okay. I am going to compare those two, but first I want to get into what FI and FE actually are. So I will talk about the parent later. Okay. All right, so here we are. What is introverted feeling? Because we're comparing the two cognitive functions. So introverted feeling, I'm actually going to go down one. So introverted feeling, or FI, is the cognitive function responsible for moral judgment, personal values, and the inner compass of good versus bad. Unlike extroverted feeling, which operates through collective ethics and social consensus, FI is deeply individualistic. It evaluates situations through personal meaning, not public logic or majority rule like FE. If I ask one central question, is this good or bad for me according to my internal code? FI is the most private of all the filling functions, or just really FE. FE and FI. It operates intensively, not extensively, a deep internal processing system that can take time to crystallize its judgments. This is why FI users often appear mysterious. So while I'm reading this, I'm going to bring up Scorpio in case those of you. Oh, whoops! I pushed the wrong thing. So just for because we are going to break this down as well. Don't forget that Scorpio also has FI parent, as does Leo. So we are comparing FI and FE. All right. So okay, so this is why FI users often appear mysterious, slow to open up, or hard to read emotionally. So Scorpios and Leo can both be hard to read emotionally. I lost my spot. Okay, so their emotional world isn't broadcasted outward. It is held and distilled internally. Although Leos are a lot more performative and expressive about their feelings, you're still going to get a sense, perhaps, depending on how, evolved they are, what is really going on here. It's very performative. So, like, Leos are going to be extremely performative, and you're like, is this like real or is this just comedy? Scorpios, you're definitely going to sense that they are hiding what's going on underneath the surface. So, when FI users finally decide how they feel it with conviction. Their values become sacred territory and they guard them fiercely. So FI is paired with TE on an axis. I don't want to get into that really right now. Oh my God, I think I just lost my spot. Oh no, okay. So at its core, FI is moral reasoning, not logical reasoning. FI users evaluate the world through emotional resonance, depth of experience, and internal truth. When they say I feel this is true, they do not mean factual truth. They mean emotional truth. And that will trigger them, I promise you that. And because FI is introverted, this evaluation happens privately, often quietly, but with tremendous depth. The higher FI is on a person's cognitive stack, the hero, parent, child, and inferior, the quicker and stronger these moral impressions form. So FI heroes instantly know how they feel about almost everything, even if they never verbalize it. FI parents evaluates morality responsibly, sometimes even rigidly. And I won't go into the other ones. So FI is internal. It often leads to strong personal identity, loyal to one's own values, and the capacity to champion individuality and underdogs. FI users defend the right of the individual to be themselves, even when society disapproves. They judge authenticity, sincerity, and moral integrity far more than social performance. Yeah. Yeah. While Effie asks, how do we keep harmony among people? FI ask, am I being true to myself? So FI also ties into status, reputation, and worthiness, but not in the way FE does. FI cares about how others think of them, not out of a desire to belong, but because status feels good. Being admired warms FI's inner world. Scorpio and Leo both have this. Scorpio would act like they don't, more so than Leo, but it's totally there. So, being judged unfairly wounds it. And because FI is internal, FI users may appear calm while silently keeping track of emotional debts, moral violations, or betrayals. At its best, FI is noble, principled, empathetic to individuals, and deeply authentic. It gives society moral heroes, compassionate protectors, and people who stand up for what is right even when no one is watching. At its worst, especially when paired with immature TE. So Leo and Scorpio both have TI or TE child, can be very naive. FI can become self-righteous, entitled, paranoid, or solipsistic. When FI loses its grounding, it can believe anything it wants to believe and justify almost any action by claiming moral superiority. Never forget that. FI users often say, in the absence of information, perception becomes reality, aka they will burn you. That is my warning. So this is because FI fills in emotional meaning wherever facts are missing, creating a story based on vibe, impression, and psychic resonance. They prioritize internal harmony and personal truth, even if objective truth is unclear. In the cognitive orbit, FI exists in a hidden relationship with FE, each providing a check and balance on the other. FI evaluates whether FE's social norms are morally valid, while FE tests whether FI's personal values are socially responsible. Together, they form the axis of human moral development. Ultimately, FI is the internal fire of authenticity, the part of the psyche that says, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and this is what I cannot betray. All right, so now I'm going to get into FE. So what is extroverted feeling, which I need to do a more in-depth writing on this, but this is what I have. So extroverted feeling is ethics rather than morality. So they are concerned about the social group, the ethics, the feelings, values of others. It is outer decision making. FI is an inner decision making function. So FE turns to other people for emotional support. FI users turn to themselves for, they're more in tune with their own values in emotions and feelings. So FE cares about what is socially appropriate, feels high pressure to fit in. Self-worth is found in helping others. FE users are very aware of the overall mood of the environment, and they work to maintain a sense of harmony in their outer world. So because Aries has FE in the child position, they can be extremely naive to this, but they are still FE users. So the FE represents empathy, FI represents sympathy. FE gives a social responsibility, broad awareness of how others feel and others' values. So they can be very worried that they're not caring enough, not doing enough for other people. Are they selfish or not? FE is all about connecting, considering others in the group, organizing to meet their needs and honor their values and feelings, maintaining society, organizational or group values, adjusting and accommodating others, deciding if something is appropriate or acceptable to others, building trust through giving in relationships. So what does extroverted feeling do? Considers the emotional and physical needs of the people around oneself, tunes into the emotional wavelengths of others, tries to create a harmonious atmosphere, considers the feelings and perspectives of other people when making a decision, lives by a code of conduct about what should and should not be done. All right, so that is enough on that for now. All right, so I'm going to take Scorpio down for now. They will be later. All right, now I can readjust my back, which is, geez, totally worth it, but my goodness. All right, so Aries, FE child, emotional feedback loop. Aries does not start with identity, they start with interaction. Aries operates through FE child, external emotional feedback. Leo operates through FI parent, internal identity anchoring. But because of Mars, Aries does not begin with identity, they begin with interaction. FE child means reading reactions in real time, testing social boundaries through action, adjusting based on feedback, often unconsciously, playful, reactive, sometimes chaotic engagement. So Aries moves like this: act, reaction, adjust, move again. They're constantly bouncing off the environment. Even when they seem independent, they are still calibrating through external response. This is why Aries can escalate quickly, joke, provoke, and push, test people emotionally, move on fast after conflict. They're not holding identity, they're sampling reality through people. Leo FI parent, internal identity anchor. Leo is the opposite internally. The sun, an FI parent, creates a pre-existing identity center. FI parent means strong internal value system, identity anchored in what feels true to me, emotional self reference, consistency of character. Leo doesn't need to check the room first. They already have a sense of this is who I am, then they express it outward. So Leo looks like feel, define, express, receive, response. The expression comes from an internal center, not environmental testing. They are not testing who they are, they are expressing who they are. So Aries, Mars, and FE child, or Aries with Mars and also FE child. I discover myself through action and interaction. Leo with Sun and FI parent. I express who I am through identity and presence. So the archetypal relationship. Aries sees Leo and thinks, why are you performing instead of just acting? Leo sees Aries and thinks, why are you moving without knowing who you are? Both are correct in their own rights. So the higher integration, when fully developed, Aries gains identity with their sun integration. Leo gains self-validation with their Saturn integration. Then the system completes. Aries initiates, Leo inspires, Mars ignites the fire, the sun sustains it. And together they create movement with meaning and identity with direction. So, why this confuses people? On the surface, Aries looks bold, expressive, and loud. Leo looks bold, expressive, and loud. So people assume they operate the same. But internally, Aries has a reactive system, Leo has an identity system. So, authenticity, the twist, this is where it gets interesting. So earlier we said Aries can look more authentic earlier. That's because Aries hasn't formed identity yet. So nothing is filtered, it's raw, immediate expression. But that doesn't mean Aries is internally anchored. They're just less filtered. Leo, on the other hand, does have an internal identity system, FI parent, but may distort it to gain recognition. So Aries is raw but not anchored, and Leo is anchored but can become performative. Distortion patterns from these functions. So Aries with FE child distortion. Because they rely on feedback, they can become reactive, provoke for stimulation, escalate emotionally, may not realize impact immediately. They don't hold emotional weight, they bounce off of it. Leo with FI parent distortion. Because identity is internal, they can become prideful, defend identity strongly, can reject feedback, can shape identity for admiration. They don't bounce emotion, they project identity. So, performance versus reality. Aries performance equals situational. They act differently depending on the moment, not fixed persona. Leo performs identity based. The Leo performance is identity based. They maintain a consistent self across environments. This is where persona can form. So, the relationship dynamic between them. Aries can feel like Leo is trying too hard to be something. Leo can feel like Aries doesn't know who they are. So, Aries growth, Aries needs to develop inner identity, reflection before action, and consistency of self. They move from reaction to identity. Leo growth, Leo needs to develop flexibility, internal validation, and separation from recognition. They move from identity to authenticity without audience. So Aries, FE child, I discover myself through interaction. Leo, FI parent, I express who I already am. Aries is not more authentic. Leo is not more fake. They're solving two different problems. Aries is discovering existence, and Leo is stabilizing identity. All right, so now we're going to move into the Aries FE child versus Libra FE parent axis. Aries and Libra axis. So Aries and Libra. I had that positioned perfectly. Awesome. So FE child versus FE parent. Wait a minute. They both have FE child. Libra and Aries. Am I in the right section here? All right. So FE. Okay. Excuse me. FE child and FE child for Aries and Libra. All right. Give me a moment here. So Libra, Aquarius. Okay. So Libra and Aries. All right, so let me read through this really quickly. All right, so Aries engages the emotional field through immediate interaction. Their nervous system does not begin with attunement, it becomes with impact. They act first and then read the emotional consequences afterward. So FE operates like experimentation. It pokes the environment, watches how people react, and adjusts in real time. This creates a style of engagement that is fast, playful, provocative, and sometimes disruptive. Aries does not intend to destabilize emotional environments, but because perception comes after action, they often enter relational space before fully reading it. Libra, by contrast, enters the emotional field through pre attunement. FE scans the relational environment before acting. It tracks tone, balance, fairness, and emotional symmetry. Libra is not experimenting with the field, it is regulating it. Where Aries asks, "What happens if I do this?" Libra asks, "How will this affect everyone involved?" So it's very, very fascinating that Aries and Libra are on a polarity axis, yet they both have FE child and TI parent. To me, that's extremely fascinating. All right, so Libra so Libra is asking, how will this affect everyone involved? Sorry, my cat's being crazy. This creates a completely different pacing. Libra slows down interaction in order to preserve harmony, while Aries accelerates interaction in order to generate clarity. This polarity creates tension because each side perceives the other as imbalanced. Aries may experience Libra as hesitant, overly diplomatic, or disconnected from direct truth. Libra may experience Aries as impulsive, inconsiderate, or emotionally disruptive. But structurally, they're solving opposite sides of the same problem. Aries introduces movement into stagnant relational systems. Libra introduces balance into chaotic relational systems. When integrated, this axis becomes extremely powerful. Aries learns to read before reacting, developing timing and emotional precision. Libra learns to act without over calibrating, developing decisiveness and courage. The result is a system that can both move and maintain relationships simultaneously. Action becomes socially intelligent. Harmony becomes dynamic rather than passive. Without Aries, relationships stagnate. Without Libra, relationships fracture. Together, they create living systems that can both evolve and stay connected. All right, so Leo Aquarius axis. All right, so Leo and Aquarius. Let me get Aries off of here, move Leo up. All right, Leo and Aquarius axis. FI parent for Leo versus FI child for Aquarius. Identity anchoring versus identity detachment. The Leo Aquarius axis operates through FI, introverted feeling, but again at opposite developmental layers. Leo carries FI parent, while Aquarius carries FI. Excuse me. All right. Okay, so it's identity versus system. So Leo begins with internal identity anchoring. FI parent for Leo ask a constant question beneath awareness. What is true to me? Identity is not something Leo constructs externally. It is something they feel internally and then expresses outward. This creates a strong sense of personal continuity. Even when Leo experiments with expression, there's usually an underlying emotional core guiding it. The sun amplifies this process, pushing identity outward into visibility. Leo stabilizes by expressing who they are. Aquarius, on the other hand, does not begin with identity anchoring. In Aquarius, you see Leo has sun ruler, Aquarius has FI child, and the sun in left field. So visibility and expressing their internal world is extremely left field for Aquarius. So, and also Aquarius does not begin with identity anchoring. FI means identity is less defined internally and less prioritized initially. Instead, Aquarius orients towards systems. So TE parent for Aquarius and Saturn ruler. So the systems. Instead, Aquarius orients towards systems, patterns with NI, and collective structures. The question is not who am I, but how does everything fit together? This creates a kind of psychological detachment from personal identity. Aquarius can analyze humanity as a system without needing to center itself within it. So, this is where the tension emerges. Leo experiences identity as essential and central. Aquarius experiences identity as secondary to the system. Leo radiates individually. Aquarius diffuses individuality into networks, ideas, and collective progress. From Leo's perspective, Aquarius can appear distant, impersonal, or disconnected from the emotional reality of being human. It can feel like Aquarius is bypassing the heart in favor of abstraction. From Aquarius's perspective, Leo can appear self-centered, overly focused on recognition, or too attached to personal identity. It can feel like Leo is prioritizing the self over the whole. But again, both are structurally necessary. Leo ensures that identity exists at all. Aquarius ensures that identity does not dominate the system. Leo says, "This is who I am. See me." Aquarius says, "How does the system evolve beyond any one individual?" When integrated, this axis becomes one of the most advanced forms of leadership. Leo learns to express identity in service of something larger than itself. Aquarius learns to reintegrate identity so systems do not become dehumanized. Without Leo, systems lose soul. Without Aquarius, identity becomes ego bound and isolated. Together, they create human centered systems where individuality and collective progress coexist. So, the polarity distortion through Aquarius, because both Leo and Scorpio. So, Leo and Scorpio fixed signs. So, we're going to get into the fixed signs coming up. So, Leo and Scorpio and Aquarius. So, they're all fixed signs. All right. So, I'm going to skip that because we're getting into that in just a moment. So, Aquarius, the polar field. All right. Give me 1 second. Page 65. Okay. So, yeah, I'm still comparing Aquarius and Leo. I will be getting into Scorpio here in a moment. All four of the. Okay. So, Aquarius represents systems over individuals, truth over identity, objectivity over emotion, collective over personal, detachment over attachment. So Aquarius is impersonal truth field. It asks, what is objectively correct? What benefits the system? What is true regardless of feelings? So the Leo Aquarius axis, identity versus collective recognition. Leo and Aquarius are direct opposites. So they are solving the same problem from opposite directions. Leo's core drive, they're asking, who am I and do others see me? Identity must be expressed, recognized, and reflected. Aquarius's core drive, Aquarius is asking what is true regardless of identity. Truth must be objective, system based, and detached from ego. Leo distortion when Aquarius is weak. When Leo does not integrate Aquarius, they lose access to objectivity. Identity becomes self referential reality. This creates my identity equals truth, resistance to feedback, inability to detach from self-image, emotional defensiveness when challenged. The distortion loop becomes identity expression, recognition, identity reinforcement. Without Aquarius, nothing interrupts the identity loop. So Leo may reject criticism, surround themselves with validation, confuse attention with truth, and over-identify with persona. Leo shadow through Aquarius. Aquarius would normally say that's not accurate, but if Aquarius is suppressed, Leo cannot hear that. So distortion becomes identity inflation. Aquarius integrated into Leo. When Leo integrates Aquarius, they gain objectivity, detachment, and truth beyond identity. Now Leo can ask, is this actually true or just me? This creates authentic leadership, grounded confidence, and identity without distortion. Integrated Leo, identity is no longer fragile because it is checked against truth, not just reflection. All right. Now I want to get into let's see, Leo and Scorpio, I believe. Okay, so I'm going to get into Leo versus Scorpio, FI parent. So both have FI parent. So let's take down Aquarius and put up Scorpio. All right, Leo versus Scorpio. Why is that? I didn't put that where I wanted it. There we go. Okay. So Leo, FI parent, identity must be expressed. Scorpio, FI parent, identity must be protected and transformed. Leo radiates identity outward. Scorpio concentrates identity inward. Leo or the ESFP FI parent. So actually, I want to go into what the parent function is first. I skipped over that when we were talking about FI. Okay, parent cognitive function. Let me bring the book back up. I'm actually reading from my Scorpio book. 500-page Scorpio book. It's ridiculous. Great. I'm going to have to move over again. All right, so parent function. So the parent cognitive function, both Leo and Scorpio have FI parent. So the parent function is your sense of responsibility. It's pessimistic in your decision-making function, the cognitive attitude of the parent function within the ego, judgments, values, critical, nurturing, corrective behaviors, and controlling. The parent function development. All right. So the parent function is a person's sense of personal responsibility. It verifies information, proper procedures, routines, references, sources, and wants to understand processes and systems. This function is more conscious and cautious and can talk about values and will fight for and stand up for them. All right, so let me see. I think I have a better, yeah, summary of the parent cognitive function. So your sense of responsibility, maturity, and inner authority. Can you see that? Okay, good. All right. So the parent cognitive function is a part of the psyche that develops slowly and reluctantly. It does not burst onto the scene the way the hero does in childhood, nor does it play freely like the child. Instead, it awakens during adolescence, around ages 12 through 20, when life begins demanding responsibility, consistency, and moral grounding. The parent is a voice in you that says, slow down, think this through. What is the responsible choice? What aligns with your values? It is cautious, skeptical, and energy intensive. While the hero and child are optimistic functions, you can see the plus and minus signs. That's what that means. So the hero and child are optimistic functions that require little effort. The parent costs energy to use. This is why most people avoid it in childhood and early adulthood. Developing the parent feels like growing up, like accepting the action has consequences. What the parent function does. So the parent function judges, verifies, evaluates, corrects, and protects. It does not want shortcuts. It demands integrity. It checks information, examines motives, and challenges behaviors, not out of cruelty, but out of responsibility. So it is a part of you that identifies what is morally or logically right, calls out what is unhealthy or immature, sets boundaries, and enforces standards. High standards. Scorpio and Leo, high ass standards. Do as I say, not as I do. They have higher standards for you than they will ever have themselves if they are not developed in this cognitive function. Grounds the hero's wild impulses, protects the child function from overuse, and builds self respect through discipline and consistency. The parent is not here to impress others, it is simply does its duty. So, why is it hard to develop? People resist their parent function because it challenges the ego. It questions the hero's dominance and exposes the blind spots created by relying too heavily on one's optimistic, extroverted functions. So, I'm going to skip that part. So, the role of adversity, the parent grows through difficulty, not ease. It strengthens when life demands maturity. When the hero fails, when the child reaches its limit, when shortcuts lead to consequences, when the inferior triggers insecurity, fear, or collapse. These moments push the psyche towards the parent function, teaching self responsibility and personal accountability. Most people do not choose this development willingly, it is thrust upon them when old coping strategies break down. So, what happens if the parent is ignored? When the parent remains underdeveloped, the hero becomes extreme, arrogant, or reckless. The child becomes indulgent and moody. The inferior becomes anxious, unstable, or explosive. The ego becomes unbalanced and overly developed on extroverted coping mechanisms. People stuck here often spiral until they hit emotional or situational rock bottom. Only then do they recognize that maturity and inner responsibility cannot be avoided forever. So, what happens when the parent is integrated? When a person embraces their parent function, they become balanced, trustworthy, and grounded. The psyche stabilizes, the inferior is soothed, decision making becomes wiser and slower, but far more accurate. The person stops running themselves and instead begins building an inner moral backbone, running from themselves. A strong parent function gives emotional resilience, ethical consistency, self respect, discernment, stability under pressure, the ability to protect, nurture, and lead, a grounded identity that cannot be easily shaken. All right, so I already went over what introverted feeling is. I'm going to go into, I've got a section here talking about FI within the 12 personality types. So hero, so we have parent. All right, so Leo and Scorpio. So I do want to go over this briefly real quick. So I gotta I am not comfortable sitting like that I'll just get closer maybe. Oh, jeez, I'm not comfortable. Okay. So parent is more cautious and conscious and cautious. All right. So FI is all about being authentic and true to yourself. FI parent encourages others to understand what's important to you and do what your heart desires regardless. If it goes against societal norms, so they don't do the empathetic version of viewing others. They're coming from how would I feel if I was in that person's position. FE opens up to how would I feel if I were that person from their perspective. FI doesn't feel natural to share how they feel about situations or even their beliefs about things. Those things are sacred to them. They're more mysterious in this way. So when FI sits in the parent position, it becomes a guardian of personal truth. These people are not casual about their values, they mentor values. They protect them, they expect others to honor them. They often become emotional backbones of the relationship, standing firm when others waver. So FI parent types care deeply about authenticity. They search for sincerity in every interaction. They recoil from superficial motives and hollow gestures. I'm sitting all crazy. Okay, so their love is selective, intense, and loyal. They don't open their hearts quickly, but when they do it with their whole being. FI parent is a sacred counselor within the psyche. It carries a heavy moral responsibility and feels accountable for the emotional truth of situations. These individuals are fiercely protective of their values and the people they love. They want others to show up authentically, courageously, and unapologetically. But they're also private. Their values are not community property. They do not reveal their core beliefs unless trust has been earned. So the evolution of FI parents. FI parent develops slowly. Its maturity arc typically looks like early life, feels different from others, develops a strong personal identity, begins noticing who is real and who is fake, protects self through selective vulnerability. Mid development learns to articulate values, learns to say no, learns emotional boundaries, begins mentoring or nurturing others emotionally. Full integration becomes a moral compass to the tribe, teaches authenticity through modeling, encourages others to honor their emotional truth, becomes grounded, dignified, warm, and selectively open. When FI parent is unhealthy, it becomes judgmental, judge, jury, executioner, controlling, passive aggressive, morally superior, closed off, hurt by small emotional oversights. But when healthy, it becomes generous, compassionate, strong, yet warm, courageously honest, a safe place for others to be real. All right, so Leo. Okay, so their greatest moral battle is with immediacy. They can mistake want for need, impulse for destiny, pleasure for purpose. So their vice is instant gratification, the temptation to indulge rather than build. But when they mature, they become embodiments of gratification. Gratification. Is that a real word? Gratification. For some reason, that sounds weird. Gratification. I don't know. It's getting late. Okay, so the ability to wait, curate, refine, and choose experiences that nourish rather than deplete. A Leo FI parent at full maturity is a true heart leader. Generous, expressive, tender, and proud without arrogance. They make authenticity feel safe. They make emotional honesty feel beautiful. This FI placement is radiant, magnetic, warm, and strikingly authentic. A Leo FI parent wants life to be meaningful, not shallow, not performative. They want pleasure that is earned and soulful. They crave experiences that allow them to express their creativity and heart. So, a healthy Leo FI parent takes pride in doing the right thing, chooses quality experiences over cheap thrills, his heart is warm-hearted, loyal, expressive, inspires others through courage and creativity, uses TE to create structure around values, uses SE to make life experiences richer. Unhealthy Leo FI parent falls into impulsive hedonism, chases validation, mistakes attention for affection, demands emotional loyalty from others. I think this is where they're Depravity can be a huge issue here because of needing so much like validation in their own ways. It's like throwing things into a black hole. So when they are deprived, there's not any amount of affection or attention you can give them to fill up their depravity black hole. It can be sad. All right, so chases validation, mistakes attention for affection, demands emotional loyalty from others, but won't be loyal themselves, becomes a slave to instant pleasure, judges others harshly while hiding their own flaws. Leo FI parent must learn the difference between ego feeding pleasure and soul feeding fulfillment. All right, so FI parent in Scorpio, the fixed advocate. So their virtue is charity versus depravity. Scorpio deepens FI's waters, making the values of these individuals intense, private, transformative. Their emotions are not simple, they are layered, archetypal, and mythic. So they are different elements, fire versus water. So they read between every line, they sense motives beneath motives. They detect hidden emotional patterns as easily as others detect tone. Okay. So healthy Scorpio FI parent, charitable, generous with wisdom, insight, and emotional presence, protective of the vulnerable, able to set powerful boundaries, authentic and raw, spiritually intuitive, loyal to those who prove worthy. Unhealthy Scorpio FI parent enters depravity, self-indulgence, and emotional chaos. Uses emotional leverage to control others, rationalizes harmful behavior for the greater good, judges instantly and harshly, creates emotional tests others cannot pass, becomes paranoid, secretive, and manipulative. Scorpio FI parent must learn compassion without control, depth without distortion, and loyalty without possession. All right, so I had to get that out of my system. I feel so much better. All right, so Leo FI parent identity must be expressed. Scorpio FI parent identity must be protected and transformed. So Leo radiates identity outward. Scorpio concentrates identity inward. Leo FI parent, the fixed entertainer identity through expression. Leo's FI parent forms identity through a stable internal value core, but that identity is not meant to stay internal. It must be seen, felt, expressed, and embodied. Leo's FI says, "This is who I am. I will show you." Because it's paired with SE hero and sun, identity becomes visible, embodied, performed in the healthy sense, and emotionally radiant. Leo stabilizes its FI by externalizing it. If they feel something deeply, they will express it, act it out, create from it, or lead through it. Their values are not hidden, they are lived in real time. So, Leo FI strength, strong self identity, emotional authenticity, loyalty to self expression, and courage to be seen. They don't ask, "Is this acceptable?" They ask, "Is this me?" Distortion here because identity is expressed outward. Distortion happens when expression becomes tied to recognition. The FI shifts from authentic identity to performed identity. They may amplify traits that get attention, suppress traits that don't, maintain a persona, and equate being seen with being real. This is where entertainer becomes performer. And then you have Scorpio FI parent, fixed advocate, identity through depth and transformation. So Scorpio's FI parent is completely different in orientation. It is not trying to be seen, it is trying to be true, protected, and transformed. So we have Mars and Pluto ruler, and then FI parent for Scorpio. So it's more protected, transformed, hidden. Scorpio's FI says, "This is what is real, and I will not betray it." Because it's paired with any hero and Pluto, identity becomes exploratory, intense, evolving, psychologically deep. Scorpio stabilizes its FI by going deeper into it, not expressing it outward immediately. So it kind of seems like Scorpio's identity is ever shifting, shedding its skin. Scorpio's FI strength creates extreme authenticity, emotional truth detection, psychological depth, loyalty to inner values. They don't ask, does this represent me? They ask, is this true at the deepest level? Their FI distortion, because identity is internal and protected, distortion happens when identity becomes guarded or weaponized. They may hide true feelings, test others before revealing themselves, become emotionally intense or controlling, attach identity to pain or transformation cycles. This is where the advocate becomes the gatekeeper. Expression versus containment. So, Leo FI expresses identity, Scorpio FI is contained identity. Leo feels and then expresses, Scorpio feels, processes, then reveals selectively. Relationship to visibility. So, Leo needs identity to be visible. Feels regulated when seen. External validation can distort identity. Scorpio does not need to be seen immediately. Feels regulated through depth, distrust, surface level recognition. So, who is more real? Scorpio appears to be more authentic because they are less performative, but Leo is equally authentic when integrated. They're just externally expressive instead of internally guarded. So the difference is Scorpio protects authenticity, Leo expresses authenticity. So the emotional risk, Leo risk, what if I'm seen and rejected? So they perform or amplify. Scorpio risk, what if I'm known and betrayed? So they conceal or test. So Leo in tier 4 moves identity outward, stabilizes group through presence, and gives emotion a visible center. Scorpio is a higher load carrier, moral load carrier. They process emotions intensely, holds psychological depth, and transforms hidden material. So Leo's FI parent, I will express who I am. Identity, expression, recognition, and regulation. Scorpio FI parent, I will protect what is true. Depth, testing, trust, and revelation. Excuse me. So Leo and Scorpio are both deeply identity driven, but Leo proves identity through visibility. Scorpio proves identity through integrity. All right, so now I want to talk about Scorpio and Aquarius axis. All right, so I'm going to be comparing. I've got quite a few pages left. What time is it? About an hour and 17 minutes in. All right, so comparing Scorpio and Aquarius. Control versus detachment. All right, so they clash. These two personalities clash, and they're both fixed in their modality. So Scorpio, control through emotional truth. Aquarius is released through impersonal truth. So Scorpio's core drive. Scorpio asks what is safe and who can I trust. They operate through emotional depth, control, protection, and boundary enforcement. Truth is personal, emotional, and lived. Aquarius's core drive. Aquarius asks what is true without attachment. This directly challenges Scorpio. Scorpio distortion when Aquarius is weak. When Scorpio does not integrate Aquarius, they cannot detach. So truth becomes emotionally fused with reality. They would argue that to death. Scorpios would argue that to absolute death. So when Scorpio does not integrate Aquarius, they cannot detach. So truth becomes emotionally fused with reality. How I feel. FI parent. This creates what I feel equals what is true. Inability to release control, over attachment to emotional narratives, difficulty seeing alternative perspectives. The distortion loop becomes feel, protect, control, reinforce feeling. Without Aquarius, nothing breaks the emotional loop. Scorpio shadow through Aquarius. Aquarius would normally say you're too attached to this, but Scorpio hears you're invalidating my reality. I'm going to take a break for a second. I'm an Aquarius 11th house Mercury. A Scorpio stellium has certainly told me that many times. I apologize. All right. So, but Scorpio hears you're invalidating my reality. So they double down. Distortion becomes emotional absolutism. Aquarius integrated into Scorpio. When Scorpio integrates Aquarius, they gain detachment, perspective, release from control. Now they can ask, is this true or is this my emotional imprint? This creates emotional intelligence without control, power without rigidity, and boundaries without isolation. Integrated Scorpio, they no longer need to control everything, guard constantly, and hold emotional memory forever. SI inferior with Moon, holding on to emotional grudges forever to have revenge 10 years down the road. Because they can step outside the feeling. So, key difference through Aquarius. The Leo distortion cannot separate identity from truth. Scorpio cannot separate emotion from truth. Aquarius fixes both, but in different ways. All right. So, yes. Where is my Leo? All right. Let me move some things around. I knew I was going to get into this. All right. Leo. Gosh darn it. You have to actually. Here, actually, I'm going to move Scorpio. All right, so Leo, Scorpio both have FI parents. Aquarius is trying to teach them to chill the heck out. For real. All right, so Aquarius fixes both, but in different ways. For Leo, Aquarius says you're not the center of truth. For Scorpio, Aquarius says your feelings are not the only truth. So this matters because Leo carries identity weight, Scorpio carries emotional weight, Aquarius carries truth weight. When distorted, Leo identity dominates truth, Scorpio emotion dominates truth. When integrated, Leo identity aligns with truth, Scorpio emotion aligns with truth. So Leo versus Aquarius, identity must submit to truth. Scorpio versus Aquarius, emotion must submit to truth. Aquarius does not care who you are, it cares what's true. And that's exactly what both Leo and Scorpio struggle to face. All right, so now we're going to get into the fixed sign matrix. So we've got Taurus, Leo, Scorpio. I'm going to have to move Scorpio up here now. Scorpio, Leo. Where'd you go, Leo? Leo. All right, so this is the fixed matrix. So we have Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, the fixed signs. Stability, load bearing, and distortion across reality layers. So all fixed signs do one thing. God, I hope my computer doesn't screw up. All right, so all fixed signs do one thing. They hold. They stabilize, maintain, and preserve something over time. But each fixed sign, is holding a different layer of reality. So Taurus, what it is holding is matter and resources, domain, physical reality. Leo, what it holds, identity and selfhood. Domain is personal expression. Scorpio, what it holds is emotion and power. Domain is psychological depth. Aquarius, what it holds is truth and systems. Domain, collective reality. So each fixed sign becomes distorted when what it holds becomes more important than reality itself. All right, so Taurus, the material anchor. I stabilize what exists, is what Taurus is saying. So Taurus holds resources, body, money, environment, and stability, second house. This is physical containment, and they also are the earth element. So healthy Taurus, when integrated, Taurus creates stability, consistency, sustainability, and grounded presence. They make things last. Taurus distortion, when distorted, comfort becomes priority over growth. Security becomes resistance to change. Material attachment overrides truth. They hold onto what is familiar, not what is correct. Collapse pattern, Taurus collapses through stagnation. Nothing moves, everything stays, even when it shouldn't. Leo, the identity anchor. I stabilize who I am. Leo holds identity, self expression, personality, and creative force. This is personal center. Healthy Leo, when integrated, identity is stable internally, expression is authentic, presence is inspiring. Coherence in people. Leo distortion. When distorted, identity becomes performance. Recognition becomes regulation. Persona replaces authenticity. They hold on to being seen instead of being real. Collapse pattern. Leo collapses through identity exhaustion. They don't know who they are without expressing it. Scorpio, the emotional anchor. I stabilize what is felt. Scorpio holds emotional truth, trauma, power, intimacy, and trust. This is psychological containment. Healthy Scorpio, when integrated, emotional depth becomes wisdom, boundaries become clean, power becomes controlled. They create truth through experience. Scorpio distortion. When distorted, emotion becomes control, trust becomes rigidity, pain becomes identity. They hold onto what hurt them, not what is true now. Collapse pattern, Scorpio collapses through emotional implosion or explosion. They either shut down completely or destroy everything outwardly. Aquarius, the truth anchor. I stabilize what is true. Aquarius holds systems, ideas, objectivity, and collective truth. This is impersonal structure. Healthy Aquarius, when integrated, truth is clear, systems are fair, perspective is wide. They create evolution. Aquarius distortion. When distorted, detachment becomes disconnection. Logic overrides humanity. People become abstractions. They hold on to ideas instead of reality. Collapse pattern, Aquarius collapses through disconnection. They lose emotional contact, relational grounding, and human context. The four holding fields. Each fixed sign stabilizes one quadrant of existence. So layer is matter for Taurus. What breaks when distorted, stagnation and attachment. Layer identity for Leo. What breaks when distorted, performance and ego loops. Layer emotion with Scorpio. What breaks when distorted, control and trauma loops. Layer truth with Aquarius. What breaks when distorted, detachment and disconnection. So each sign corrects another, but also triggers it. Taurus versus Scorpio, matter versus emotion. Taurus says stay stable, Scorpio says transform or die. Conflict, comfort versus truth. Leo versus Aquarius, identity versus truth. Leo says see me, Aquarius says that's irrelevant. Conflict is self versus system. Scorpio versus Aquarius, emotion versus objectivity. Scorpio says this is real because I feel it. Scorpio or Aquarius says that is not objective. Conflict, experience versus detachment. Taurus versus Leo, security versus identity. Taurus says be consistent, Leo says be expressive. The conflict is stability versus visibility. When each dominates, Taurus traps growth, Leo traps identity, Scorpio traps emotion, Aquarius traps truth. A fully integrated human needs all four. Taurus for grounding, Leo for identity, Scorpio for depth, and Aquarius for truth. So Taurus builds the world, Leo defines the self, Scorpio tests the truth, and Aquarius reveals it. The fixed signs don't move, they decide what reality becomes. All right, so this is extremely interesting, and I will be capping it here. I'm almost at an hour and a half. All right, so we're talking about the fixed signs. Actually, give me one moment. I want to go over this quickly if I can find it. I'm digging through a 500-page book. I need to get to the table of contents really quickly, and my computer's being super slow. That's probably why people have straws. They have straws in their containers when they're talking online, because then you don't have to like do the whole neck thing. Yeah, it makes sense, but I really don't care. Oh no, my Scorpio book is oh, okay, there we go. I thought it was frozen. Oh, it is kind of frozen actually. I'm just trying to get to the table of contents and it isn't even showing images. I need a new computer. Please hit like and subscribe. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm almost at low tier monetization. And so I can afford a new computer because I bought this one in 2014. All right, here we go. What was I doing? Uranus? I was actually at the place where I wanted to be. All right, what are we talking about? Fixed. Do I want to break down fixed? I think I broke that down here. I should have. Yes, fixed modality, page 74. All right, so the fixed signs. Okay, I'm going to go through the fixed signs, what that is first, and then I want to break down Uranus because this is absolutely hysterical. All right. So fixed signs fall in the middle of a season. Taurus in the middle of spring, Leo in summer, Scorpio in fall, and Aquarius in winter. So it makes sense that they are the stabilizers. They're fixed. They're the stabilizers of the zodiac. So fixed signs fall in the middle, and as the continuation of what's begun, often they are steady and stable. They fix things in place and are able to engage in sustained activity over a long period of time. So they do have high endurance in different ways. So fixed signs come along as the season is already underway. They represent going deeper and pursuing the full realization of what's already begun. They can initiate, but their true gifts emerge when they're able to sink deeply into ongoing projects. I wish I could see these bigger. All right. I can't see. I can't remember if they're all finisher types. No, the finisher type would be Aquarius. No. The finishers are the eldest of each personality. And so Taurus is the baby, Leo middle, Scorpio middle, Aquarius eldest. So the only finisher type here psychologically is Aquarius. Interesting. Okay. Alrighty, so they can initiate, but their true gifts emerge when they're able to sink deeply into ongoing projects. The fixed signs have a remarkable ability to preserve, and often they're models of solo productivity. They enjoy those peak moments of achievement, but seem most at home with themselves when immersed in a sustained, worthwhile, challenging pursuit. Okay, so these signs are the holders, the ones that provide the essential focus, form, and structure that enable the world to function. They are the wood that retains the nail, the coach that holds them together, the CEO who puts place an overarching plan. So, being born under a fixed sign often means feeling compelled to acquire the knowledge to solve all problems and to master everything that can possibly be discovered. So, negative aspects may become rigid and inflexible, convinced of their own rightness, deaf to others, and closed to approaches other than their own. Being too fixed leads to sterility and inactivity. All right, so I actually now want to go. I have a huge section. I'm looking in my Scorpio. Oh no, it's glitching. I'm looking in my Scorpio 500-page book. It is my greatest masterpiece thus far. All right, so Uranus. Here we are, Uranus. Okay, so if you look, all of these fixed signs have Uranus. So the nature of Uranus, and it's like a joke it's a joke within itself because each of these signs are trying to dig their freaking heels in. They're trying to control different aspects of things. So they're trying to dig their heels in and stabilize whatever they're holding on to, control whatever they're holding on to. And so Uranus, its sneaky little self, is in the inferior for Taurus, is in the left field for Leo, is in the exaltation for Scorpio, and ruler for Aquarius. So they are all in different positions. Uranus. Yeah, they're all literally in different positions. I've never actually noticed this before and I don't know why. So Taurus, Uranus in fall, Leo, Uranus left field, Scorpio, Uranus in exaltation, and ruler for Aquarius. So Aquarius is the most comfortable with Uranus energy, and then it would be Scorpio, and then it would be Leo, and then it would be Taurus. So Taurus is the most uncomfortable with this. All right, so Uranus is the first transpersonal planet. So its influence begins where ego-driven development ends. The personal planets describe who you think you are. Uranus describes who you become once life forces you beyond your comfort zone. So all of these archetypes are extremely trying to fixate on their comfort zones, and Uranus is forcing you beyond your comfort zone. It rules innovation, creative intelligence, radical honesty, individuation, rebellion against outdated systems, quantum leaps in consciousness, collective awakening, futurism, technology, electricity, and networks, eccentricity, genius, and nonconformity. All right, so you're challenged beyond norms. You want to rewrite systems and inject truth where denial once lived. Uranus disrupts the familiar because the familiar is too small for your soul's evolution. Okay, so the highest, okay, so I'm reading from my Scorpio book. So in exaltation, so that would be Scorpio. Uranus in exaltation, the high form of Uranian intelligence. So when Uranus is in a sign where its nature aligns, but does not rule, is in exaltation. So it heightens potential. So in exaltation, Uranus can express genius without as much destruction, innovation without the chaos, awakening without collapse. This is the highest form of Uranian intelligence. Creative breakthroughs instead of impulsive rebellion, radical authenticity instead of identity instability, visionary insight instead of erratic behavior, constructive change instead of indiscriminate demolition. But even exalted, Uranus can still overcharge the nervous system, overstimulate the psyche, or push liberation faster than the personality can process. This is where psychological maturity and cognitive function development becomes essential. So Uranus as a transpersonal teacher. So it functions as a spiritual instructor. So the transpersonal planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, function as spiritual instructors. They represent evolutionary forces that call us into higher states of consciousness. They do not care about your comfort, your schedule, or your plans. Uranus teaches through shock, disruption, and sudden clarity, emotional detachment, freedom through breakdown, and aha moments that rearrange everything. So when Uranus activates, intuition sharpens, sleep patterns shift, synchronicities intensify, and the nervous system becomes more sensitive to subtle realms. This is why Uranus transits often coincide with awakenings, career pivots, relocations, spiritual breakthroughs, and complete identity rewrites. All right, so I don't want to get too. So, the shadow side of Uranus, when underdeveloped or unconscious, you can become erratic or unstable. Relationships feel unpredictable. You reject structure, even healthy structure. You burn bridges impulsively. You resist routine and commitment. You rebel for attention or validation. You impose your awakening on others as a moral crusade. You detach emotionally and become cold, superior, or self righteous. The shadow of Uranus is revolution without wisdom. It burns down the house without having another home to move into. So, Uranus is the lightning bringer, the liberator, the disruptor, the part of you that refuses to live asleep. Yeah, insanely fascinating. All right, so Uranus is trying to break resistance. All right, so Uranus is a force that destabilizes every fixed sign when they overhold. All right, so I have to actually scroll this one, and my computer's glitching. So, how Uranus shows up in each fixed sign. So, Taurus is the matter stability. Taurus holds physical reality. When Taurus overholds, stagnation, attachment, and refusal to change happens. Uranus hits Taurus as forced material disruption. Examples: financial shocks, lifestyle changes, loss of comfort, and sudden instability. Uranus says you can't hold this forever. Leo is the identity stability. Leo holds identity. When Leo overholds, they get the persona, ego, inflation, and need for recognition. Uranus hits Leo as identity disruption. Examples: loss of status, public perception shifts, identity crisis, sudden change in how they're seen. Uranus says that's not who you really are. Scorpio is emotional control. Scorpio holds emotional truth and power. So when Scorpio overholds, it turns into control, resentment, and emotional narratives. Uranus hits Scorpio as emotional shock. Examples: betrayals, sudden endings, exposure of hidden truths, uncontrollable change. Uranus says you don't control this. Aquarius system stability. System stability is what Aquarius is. How ironic. You've got Uranus and Saturn there, total opposite energies. It's really funny. So Aquarius actually rules Uranus. So Aquarius can still overhold. They overhold ideas, systems, and identity as the truth. When distorted, they have rigid beliefs, intellectual superiority, and emotional detachment. Uranus hits Aquarius as ideological collapse. Examples: belief systems breaking, being proven wrong, system failure, or loss of certainty. Uranus says even your truth is not absolute. All right, so all fixed signs try to stabilize reality. Uranus forces reality to evolve. Taurus holds matter. Uranus breaks comfort. Leo holds identity. Uranus breaks persona. Scorpio holds emotion. Uranus breaks control. Aquarius holds truth. Uranus breaks certainty. So, at a deeper level, Uranus is the shadow teacher of all fixed signs. Every fixed sign thinks it can hold reality still. Uranus is what proves it can't. All right, so the sequence: Taurus overholds, I won't change. Taurus locks into comfort, stability, material control. Reality stops moving. This creates stagnation. Uranus triggers when stagnation peaks, disruption enters. This pushes into Leo collapse. Then I will define who I am through this. Leo reacts to instability by amplifying identity, performing control, and seeking recognition. But now identity becomes overcompensation. Result is persona inflation, ego instability, dependence on being seen. Identity becomes fragile. So the next break, when identity fails, Scorpio collapses. I don't trust this anymore. Scorpio steps in and says something is wrong, something is unsafe, someone is lying. So they tighten control, withdraw emotionally, and scan for threat. Emotion becomes weaponized truth. Result is paranoia, control loops, emotional intensity spikes, and destructive patterns. Final break, when control fails, the Aquarius collapse happens. None of this matters. Aquarius detaches completely, removes emotion, removes identity, and removes attachment. Truth becomes cold abstraction. Result is disconnection, nihilism, superiority complex, and loss of humanity. So the reset event, at peak detachment, reality resets through collapse, which throws us back into Taurus, forced rebuild. Now Taurus must rebuild structure, reground reality, and restabilize life. So the full cycles, Taurus stagnates, Leo overcompensates, Scorpio controls, Aquarius detaches, reality collapses, and Taurus rebuilds. All right, so how many more pages? Okay, so I have 11 more pages. And so this portion, what am I at? I'm almost at 2 hours. All right, so I want to get back into Leo for a moment. This was a transition video. I just thought all of that was extremely fascinating and needed to be hammered on a little bit more before I go into Leo, inner and outer, masculine and feminine. All right. Actually, I think I might start the other video with this. We were talking about collapse. I think that would be a good. All right. So that's a good place to start for tomorrow's video. I will be talking about the Leo collapse pattern, when identity becomes performance. What else? And then getting into the shadow extraction pattern, validation loops, and then breaking down the inner and outer masculine and feminine. So this is a good place to stop. I thought that this would be a fun in between video. I did do that for Capricorn and Scorpio. I compared those two quite a bit. I think I did Cancer and Virgo in between videos, bridge videos. This was just a good place to do a bridge video. Anyways, yeah, like and subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed this bridge video. The next video, I will be feathering out Leo's inner and outer masculine and feminine, containment through moral load bearing. Moral load bearer number 8, number 4 on the masculine through feminine axis. So this is dense information. I thought I'd break it up a little bit before I dove back in. Yes, very intimidating. My next book will probably be 700 pages. My moral ranking book about the inner and outer feminine and masculine containment within each archetype, it will probably end up being 700 pages. My Scorpio book turned out to be over 500 pages. So this has been a very huge endeavor. It has been, I think I've been working on this series for a month now, give or take. I don't know. It's just, it takes a heck of a lot of time, preparation. I'm 10 years into this work. So anyways, I truly hope you enjoyed this video. I will continue on marching on, whether you like it or not. Anyways, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you all for being here. Take care.